Good morning, everyone. Welcome to American Scouser's morning coffee. And I got being green going this morning. And what do we have over there? It's the morning coffee
Uh,
or tea show, but
yeah,
Trevor is
no,
just likes to
yeah.
make those jokes.
I always add those extra three dots for whatever I have in my fridge or water. I'm getting rid of the seltzers more from our little get together over the
Nothing like a
weekend.
morning seltzer to
Yeah,
start
they
the
gotta go.
day.
They gotta go somehow. So
Well, honestly, the more I
yeah,
I tried to stay off of social media and stuff yesterday because the more I was, the more probably I needed something to drink middle of the day myself because it was just aggravating to see the fallout. We talked in the morning about the whole FSG thing, like the news that came out. And honestly, I even said between now and then and now, we would probably have more information coming out and stuff like that, but not really. Ultimately, the more you look at the statements, it's almost one of those where they say they're looking for more investors, like shareholders, somebody to put in some money, leaving the door open for a sale as well. I guess that's the only thing different from last time. But that sounds like if somebody came in and said, I'll give you, Dr. Evil style, like bazillion, gazillion dollars. And then, they're like, oh, okay, then I guess just take it. But it's one of those like when you sell stuff in the garage sale and somebody comes and says, I'll give you this much for the whole table. You're like, okay, sounds good. Just get rid of it, get it out of here. But what did you get out of it now that we've had more time to digest, I guess, and more news coming out? I guess there are different bids already and stuff like that.
yeah. I saw a couple different ones where there's a man from Dubai. There's a Bahrain wealth fund. Yeah, that's and we've both seen them through social media and our discords. Like, oh, there's like, oh no, but this is a good thing. We get to, and it goes back to what we were saying yesterday, talking out both sides of your mouth, going, okay, you talk about how they're all about the money, but wouldn't we just be all about the money then if these horrible, horrible just regimes came in and just splashed us with a bunch of dirty oil money or money that just came from like dictatorial, just
God knows
taking
off of the
whatever.
shoulders of
I'm
who?
trying to just come up with ways to make it sound, I don't know, palatable, not even good. Just just where it doesn't sound like a war atrocity and you just can't do it. But either way, I I'm still of the mindset of if it's bringing in more investors. I read something where they said they hadn't brought in more kind of lower level investors since LeBron James, and I
Yeah.
find that hard to believe. I go, why would you? Why would you just cap it at him and go, you know what? We don't need any more. We got LeBron in the
We got the
building.
king.
Yeah, he's not an actual king like some of the people that want to buy the team. He doesn't rule over an actual land, but he's got a nickname of it. So I
Maybe
guess
they
I
didn't
guess
know
that
that. They were
counts.
like, hey, a king wants to
It's
invest.
part of, yeah, it's
That
part
should
of
be
the
all we need.
checklist. Either way,
Here's the
yeah.
thing, and I said this yesterday. It's freaking nauseating seeing some of the people, and I hate to say it. It's a lot of, especially online in the U.S. groups. It's a lot of expats, I would say, in general, or people who actually like support Liverpool but don't really understand Liverpool, maybe the city, the culture, the club, and stuff like that. And it's becoming that has been the only silver lining I think that's come out, that who really gets this club and who's along for the ride kind of a deal, because you can't, and I get it, the normal the anti-American owner sentiment maybe a lot have back there. A, they have had a horrible experience with like Jonathan Hicks. B, it's to a city that's obviously clearly more socialist. It's obviously any American entity in more reason, for probably good reason, represents, capitalism and stuff like that. So kind of like, against the grain over there. So I understand that. But as somebody who has no horse in the race, because I'm not freaking American, so there's no reason for me to say like, oh, FSG, but they're American and stuff. I couldn't freaking care less if they were Swedish or Australian or whatever. I really don't care. The bottom line is you have to find a good balance between running it like a business, because it has to be. You can't do this, oh, hey, everybody happy kind
Yeah.
of thing, and compete with some of these other clubs. You can't even barely compete now with the some of the commercial stuff they've done that people were up in arms about. People were bitching that they were selling like Hello Kitty stuff on the sites, like they had like a sponsorship with them and stuff. Dude, it's freaking money, and it's clean money. What do you freaking care? I mean, you have to get some money coming in. And then the same guy who bitches there wants, FSG to invest more in the team and buy Mbappe and stuff like that. That was obviously when Mbappe didn't have part of Paris yet as part of his deal. And that's what aggravates me, or people who say, good, I hope we get like an oil money and stuff like that. You're not getting it. And then like there was somebody who commented yesterday saying, oh, I can't wait to see what Klopp can do with oil money. I'll tell you this, Klopp won't do shit with oil money, because Klopp will probably not work for oil money and he'll be the first one gone. I don't think people understand, the reason Klopp is a good fit is he fits with the city. His mindset, the way he thinks, the way, like the things he says goes with the ethics and the culture of the city. And I mean, what do you think? I mean, do you think like Klopp would stick around? Like, would Klopp work at Newcastle, for example?
I don't think so. I agree with that. He's one of those guys that he was kind of picked out once the kind of carousel after the past. I want to say like post Hodgson carousel through like Rogers and all those tumultuous times before we finally got to Jurgen, where it was one of those things where they had a bunch of guys on their radar that kind of fit the profile of the club and the city that they really wanted to just kind of turn things around with. And he was the one that was available earliest, and it's worked wonders. That being said, I really think a regime change like that takes a special kind of person that has to come in and really just kind of, I don't know, turn that blind eye. And granted, it seems that's something that like Pep Guardiola can do, and but still kind of do what he does. Not everybody has that temperament. Not everybody has that ability, and that's kind of what makes him special in his own regard. In the same vein, PSG has run through managers like they're fucking Watford, so they can't find that balance. It's definitely, it takes a special personality, and not to say that Klopp couldn't. I just don't think he would.
I don't think he would. And honestly, I also semi think he couldn't. I get the feeling that it's for a guy who likes to work with smaller teams, and I think his expertise is getting more out of less, building a team culture and getting, building actually a team, not getting superstars to mesh and work together. It's not a guy who likes to rotate a lot. So if you have all these stars on your bench, they're not going to be a happy camper with Klopp, because regardless of who, he's not going to put him in again until like the 80th minute, and there's going to be a lot of upset people. I just don't think it fits him the same way. I still think Pep is a good manager. I know everybody says, oh, because he's got the squad, because I feel like not everybody can do that as well. That's his expertise, being able to shuffle around and keep superstars happy and
Managing egos is
basically
his biggest thing.
Make those superstars that come with big money. I realize they're getting the big money, but still we see a lot of players who get big money but not still buy into the system and play a team game. He gets them to do that and get success that way. So that's his thing. I don't think like he could do what Klopp is doing at Liverpool. But I think if you switch the moves, I think you still get like a competitive scene. You don't have like Klopp just like running away with it every single time either. So it's kind of like a balance. I just get, if somebody says, hey, you know what, FSG did this, because they've done some wrong moves, right? I mean, in my mind, in my opinion, at least, they've kind of like backed away from them, either due to the reaction or they've seen the wrong ways, whichever way you want to do it. Probably because of the reaction in most cases, but they've corrected them. So if somebody is thinking, "Hey, you know what? These guys made a bunch of bad moves. Yeah, they've done some good stuff, but they did it, and then any good thing they've done, it's always somehow written off to increasing the value so they can make more money." They can never actually do good, but whatever. And if you think, like another ownership comes in from Australia or Norway or something like that, and we'll do better, that's fine. That's fair. And I can go with that. But you can't complain about FSG and like make the Super League thing your main issue and then be totally okay with oil money and get one of these like shady owners from somewhere else, from another dictatorship. I mean, I understand no billion is probably made fully clean, but like you were saying, there's like different levels of it right there, and it's just been like, I don't even want to say an eye opener. I think I already knew, but maybe I did not know the percentage. And to me, the people who say oil money, oh yeah, like they want to, they want to play like FIFA Ultimate Team, which I'm building a great team on, by the way. But anyway, they want to like do that. I understand that they never got the city and stuff. I think the thing that aggravates me more is all these people that were along for the ride and they celebrated the wins and the title wins and the Champions League and stuff, and now coming out of their hole and be like, oh yeah, we never liked FSG anyway. But you like the ride, you like what they brought. Now you're bitching about it to the point where the things you bitch about, you're doubling down, saying, yes. I think some of those people say there is no difference between having FSG and or like like the Newcastle ownership.
Yeah, it's something where, and I like the analogy. Everybody likes the scenery, but they don't care if the forest gets cut down. My my thing is, you have to. You don't necessarily always have to be on one side of the fence or the other, but the more times you jump over it, the less I care about your opinion, because it's something where you can just sit there and go, "Oh, these guys are bad for this," but oh man, they made 300 million from this partnership, so we can get this guy. Oh god, this is such a disgrace to the club. But wait, we brought in this guy who is really good, but he like hits his wife or something like that. Not necessarily with this team, but across all sports, you kind of like you selectively look away.
Yeah.
And I think Liverpool is one of those rare clubs where they have built that culture over the years where it's not necessarily like the working man's club anymore, but it is the in terms of the players on the field, yada yada yada, a bunch of old like guys, a bunch of scouts people like that. But it is a working man's club in terms of the atmosphere around it and the people and the fan base who've gravitated towards the club because of that culture and because
Yeah.
of that atmosphere. It's really one of the things that drew me in when I was coming into enjoying the game. And it's yeah, you can't have it both ways. You can't sit there and go, well, this money's bad because it's not enough and it's not giving us exactly what we want. But this money's good because it'll be an endless supply, but it came off fucking genocide and fucking fracking that will kill our planet in 20 fucking years. But oh no, we'll be able to get Jude Bellingham now. So that who fucking cares about that? You have to like you don't necessarily need to pick a lane, but you got to at least stay on the fucking road.
Yeah, I think that's well put. I think it's people who don't necessarily like, I mean, obviously they like the club or whatever, but it's not about like liking the club's culture or the city or anything like that. It's more about liking winning. They just like winning. I mean, to me, like those fans are basically similar to fans who are people like
We've seen them
supporting
all.
City now. You see them in the US a lot, sadly. Like these City fans. I always talk about like my best buddy and like my like literally best buddy from back home from like childhood who lives in DC now. And his daughter was getting into soccer, started soccer, so they were watching soccer together. And they started supporting City because obviously, I think she's like 5 or 6 or something, like supports the team that's like, is gonna win more often than not.
Mm.
And then you got kind of like, she's like, yeah, like City. He's just like, I mean, he's never been a sports guy, so he's like, yeah, I guess it's City it is. So to me, that's no different. Like, you're just chasing winning. You're not really looking into it and stuff like that. I mean, I know if Oyton, who I know occasionally listens, if he really looked into it, he would probably become a Liverpool fan way over like a City fan. It was just like matter of, just like right there for the
Yeah.
ride, for the winning kind of thing. And I think there are a lot of fans like that probably. If anything, things like that kind of weeds that out. And it's okay to be like, it's totally okay to be a new fan. I mean, most of our channel is based on that, kind of like introducing the club
Yeah.
more and more, like the culture and stuff, to US. But you gotta, you gotta stay there for the right reasons. I mean, I did not, obviously, I started like supporting Liverpool back in like '84 as like a kid. Yes, I'm that fucking old. And so, but over time, especially afterwards, when I went to college in like London, I got a chance to like, go to Liverpool and stuff like that, and like kind of like find out more about the city, more about the club. And that's when I really, really got, settled in. I felt like, like this is it. Whereas before it was more like a casual fandom, probably, like if they're on TV, that's what I'm rooting for. But afterwards, I was like, yeah, like this is something that I can really get behind, like feel complete with the club because I agree with everything it stands for. I just find it impossible to do that. For example, for Newcastle Chainsaw FC and stuff like that. And I'm sure there's a lot of Newcastle fans who are kind of torn, right? Like you're saying, they don't know which side of the fence to go on. Maybe on Saturday after the goal is scored, they fall over to that side. They kind of climb back up again during the week and stuff like that. Because I'm sure they know, they've heard for months about this ownership. And but at the same time, they brought winning. So I'm sure I can see people being torn, but at least say I'm torn and not act like a total
Yeah.
idiot that you don't get it. And that's, I guess, the biggest confusion for me and frustration. So yesterday was extremely
Yeah.
frustrating in that sense.
And it was a lot of stuff that just came out from a lot of places at all at the same time, and you kind of just had to kind of like pick through the weeds more than anything.
Yeah, sometimes I look and then I'm like, yeah, this is a good. There are times where like the game ends and I'm like, yeah, this is a good day to be off of social media because I'm not gonna pick these battles and I don't have enough time to fight every idiot in the
Yeah.
world. Uh, that I leave that to Bickler, who just goes on a crusade and like fights the windmills, and then tries to respond to everything. Yeah, you do that too.
No, no, I'm
Oh,
I'm
okay.
I'm,
I
I'm
was
just
like,
kind of
yeah, I
going
just
for
don't
him.
have,
I
I used to,
uh,
and there are times I get suckered in maybe, but like it's just not worth it, and I don't have the time, which is probably a good thing that I don't have the time. Otherwise, the biggest headlines right now is obviously these World Cup squads getting announced, and I don't know if it is. We were talking about this like pre-show. Like, do you want to wait till the end of the last game because you're gonna announce it, tell a guy he's not in, and then on during the weekend, the other guy's gonna get injured. They're like, hey, you know what? Just joking, you're in, kind of a thing. Do you just wait for the last game and call them in? If they get injured in camp, that's a different story, I think. But either way, some of the countries are already pulling the plug. I'm assuming most will continue to do so rest of the week. The biggest news, obviously, that comes for us is Bobby not being selected. What do you make of that?
yeah, and if you look at the Brazil squad, it's not entirely wrong that he didn't make it because it seems that they're carrying kind of like a shallow midfield, which means they're probably going to have a lot of these forward guys drop back behind whoever they're going to play up front, and they have an embarrassment of riches in attack, and Bobby not kind of fitting what they want to do in terms of having that guy fall behind. That's I don't I don't fault them for that at all. I really think that he's probably the last one out. So if one of these guys do get injured this
Yeah,
weekend, he will be that first call they make. But I, it's yeah, it's bad for Bobby in terms of what he wants to do with his career and everything, and have that little just mark on his mantle that he went to a World Cup.
And
It
this is
stinks for him
probably
on that,
his
but
world's last one.
selfishly it's good for us. Selfishly, it's good for us because it gives him that time to kind of reset and just.
Cosgrove says, "Have we signed Bellingham yet?" No, we're still at the register getting
No, this is
getting
why we
the
need
ringing
to.
it,
This is
ringing
why
out
we
the
need to
cash
get.
still. So
Yeah.
once we're done, it will be in the till, and then we can just go get him.
Once
I mean,
LeBron James decides to retire and give us all his money, then we can go get Bellingham.
yeah, maybe if he gives up the Vegas NBA team dream and focuses on this instead. But
Yeah.
so with Bobby, I think what you're saying is exactly right. I don't think he fits. Even when it was in the peak of his form, like he would rotate with Jesus and stuff like that, and like you would see Jesus's whiny face start and Bobby come off the bench, or Bobby would start and then eventually give it to him in like the 60th minute and stuff. I think it just does not fit what they're doing. And the thing is, that's why I've always said, like Bobby has to appreciate Liverpool as well more. You know what I mean? Like a guy like, for example, Mane is valuable to a lot of other teams because of what he does and what he can do and stuff like that. Bobby, I don't think as much, just because what he brings is very unique and it fits perfectly to what we do. So not a lot of teams do that. I mean, there might be some teams looking at us and saying, "Yeah, I wish we had somebody like that would do that workload and then be like a false nine and stuff." But not a lot of teams do that. So I do hope that we can get a good deal and sign him for an extension, because a good Bobby, even as he ages, would be valuable to come in, like off the bench and stuff like that. Leave it to Kazi to make analogies like this, but Bobby is a bit like the third breast for Brazil. So you're like, okay, wait, what? And then fantastic. Is it really fantastic to see though, Trevor, the third breast? Are you up for that? What is
I
that?
don't
Total
know.
Recall?
I've seen Total Recall. It just kind of weirded me out. But I get the path he's going down, where it's one of those things where Brazil always has that embarrassment of riches, where there's too many guys. You're always going to have to sit somebody down. Even when Bobby was kind of starting regularly for Brazil and was scoring, his play when he would come back would suffer because he kind of everybody go, "Oh man, he just scored 4 times for Brazil." I got fucking caught up on that many a times where I'm like, "All right, he's in scoring form. He's going to come back and he's going to go get goals." And then the first 2 games he comes back, I think he gets like 1 shot on target, and you're going, "Okay, reset the expectations and look at things through the correct lens." and
It's
and
odd
realize that,
because he has scored a lot more than normal this year. That's not really his thing. I know, like, most people will say striker and just look at goals scored, but what he does off the ball, but it's not as valuable to Brazil because they just don't play that way. I just feel really bad for Bobby because he's one of my favorite players, and this is his last World Cup, and not being able to make it, it has to kill him. I mean, I hate to say,
with
like,
the way
let's
they're
hope
bringing
for
in old guys there, though,
they
they're
have
still,
Alves over
they're
there.
still giving Alves. They brought in Thiago Silva. They're bringing in keepers who are like 34 and have like
they did
0
get like a
caps.
lot of,
So he may have one more run in him.
But here's the thing: if what he does is not valuable now, it's not going to be valuable in 4 years. It's going to be even less valuable. And that's the thing, Bobby, Mo, and Diaz not going to World Cup is wonderful for us, says Cosgrove, and Sparky says the same thing. Any Liverpool player not going to World Cup is good for us. They still look burnt out from last season. And I know, and I agree, for the club, it's better. But I don't know. I feel like as fans, we almost have to. I mean, this is a very likable team, and I want these guys to be, successful aside from just like Liverpool. I mean, not that I care about their national teams or whatever, but I know they care.
I'm not rooting for Brazil. Well, let's just put it that way.
Yeah, dude, I grew up rooting because Turkey really makes an appearance, so you got to pick pick a different horse. And as a kid, just watching them, like loving how they play, And now it's so full first of all, until Neymar retires, it's very, very painful for me to root for Brazil because somehow anything good they do, Neymar gets credit for. So I can't root him for that. But then I never noticed this, but Gally pointed out in one of the podcasts that all these guys that I despise somehow are Brazilian, like Jesus, Richarlison, and stuff like that. So I don't know how they're getting all these guys suddenly because it never used to be like that. It was a lot more likable national team with like a lot of skill and stuff like that, even if they played for like different teams. But I mean, like Cosgrove says, they picked Richarlison, who has scored basically zero Premier League goals. I mean, he has played well when he's out. I didn't even know if he was fit. So I really think you're right. He's probably the last one cut. So if there's an injury or one of these guys they're getting, because all these teams are announcing people who have, as Klopp would say, a knock, but expected to be back in a week or two.
Yeah.
Well, if any of those guys are not really healing as they should, or they're going to be able to come back and start practicing, I think Bobby still gets a call.
Yeah.
I know
Yeah.
what Sparky and Kazi are saying. I just feel like, I want these guys to be successful and happy about what they're doing as well. Because I don't know if demoralized Bobby is better than or worse than arrested Bobby.
Yeah. And then you kind of look at it from the England perspective of, is Trent going and getting that call and then sitting every game and playing 4 minutes in mop up time in the tournament? Is that going to be better for his mental health than Bobby being left off the roster? Or are they both detrimental?
Yeah.
There's always those shades of gray with that. And I think those are conversations that Klopp has to go have with the player. Like, just be like, hey, this is not an indictment of you. This is not saying you're not good enough. Look at this roster. Look at how your team plays, because these these players that play for certain national teams aren't fucking stupid. They know that sometimes they don't necessarily fit what a guy wants to do. And when the managerial carousel with the national teams go over and over and over again, and you have to prove yourself to three different guys in a World Cup cycle, sometimes that will just burn you out in its own right.
Yeah.
Going, all right, this guy wanted me to play this way, and then but he got fired or he went to go get a club job, and now this guy wants me to do this, where I just got used to these guys that I play with every 4 months doing this, and it kind of sometimes maybe it's just not worth the hassle.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to get in these guys' mind, I guess, but you would think, yeah. I mean, somebody and to me, the difference between Trent and Bobby is the age. I think Trent probably
Yeah,
knows once Southgate gets canned, he's gonna have, and he's so
he's
much
gonna have
years ahead
yeah,
of him. Whereas Bobby doesn't have as much, so I can see it being a bit more painful for Bobby than Trent. But Sparky says, hope Trent doesn't go. If it was left to Sparky, he would throw everybody in the freezer
yeah.
after the Southampton game and just open the doors when the World Cup ends and let them out. They're like, okay, guys, back to work. Alan sends a headline of Sepp Blatter admits it was a mistake to award the World Cup. I guess it's easy to say once you cashed in the envelopes.
The country's too small. Fuck you. That's your reasoning?
And that's what I love. He's like, his reasoning is not. We needed a bigger country, man. And they're doing these things now where it's like multiple countries hosting it and stuff like that. So, and yeah, is that really that's his? That's what he's like. Damn, man, we
No.
shouldn't have gone to a small country like this. It's like, what? I don't know what the hell he's talking about. But I mean, like I say, it's very, very clear, and it should be why this World Cup is there, despite
Yeah,
all the negative things with it and stuff like that. And
yeah.
sadly, that's the state we're in right now with sports overall. So before we go real quick, let me ask you about this, because obviously being an American and having the national team, and not being an American like Bickler where you support the national team, do you want the lineup, the squad, to be announced based on form or based on, I don't want to say reputation, but overall performance in the past?
Now I'm I'm always of the thought process that you take that as much of the perfect mix of it as you can in terms of like goalkeepers and defenders. You just want the guys that play the best with each other. The familiarity, I feel, in the back line and in the goalkeeper ranks, that's more important than if like a guy had, because they're talking a lot about certain guys who've struggled in like MLS this year, and but they all play together on the national team, and there's just those things. Midfield, it's I like to get as many creative guys in there as possible. That's why I'm hoping like Weston McKennie's really healthy. But up front, if you're scoring goals right now, I don't care your reputation. I don't care how many jerseys they can sell of you. If you're scoring goals, that's who I want to go to the World Cup. And the fact that everything else that I mentioned is what Berhalter is looking for. He's looking for familiarity with his defenders, guys he can trust, keepers who have a track record on an international stage of getting clean sheets and getting results against big teams, midfielders with creative juices flowing through them. But up top, he just picks the same people who can't fucking score over and over and over and just thinks that this is going to be the time. Like everybody sitting here with their Powerball tickets, this is going to be the time that I win. This is going to be the time Josh Sargent goes and gets a hat trick. No, he's not. He's not going to. And as much as you want that to be the case, Greg, it's not going to happen. And the fact that we have to like hold him for ransom to like even give a guy like Pifak a look, who is absolutely crushing it in the Bundesliga and taking a Union team that a lot of people were putting closer to the relegation zone than the top of the table. He's scoring goal for fun. Yeah, and we have to like basically just sit there and like protest for this guy to even get a game in a camp with meaningless games. It's just absolutely it's absurd.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tricky thing to manage, and that's why not everybody can do it. It takes kind of like a special type of manager, I think, to do it. Sparky is calling USA's 0-3 in 3 games, which honestly, like that group, anything can happen. There's a lot of groups where like I would not be shocked either way. As we head over to the World Cup, obviously we're going to kind of start converting this to more of a World Cup thing, because I'm not going to spend entire November and December just talking about rumors and stuff like that. But then Kazi says USA beat England. See, so it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, that's one of those groups that I have like looked at and said it can go freaking either way. But going back to the national team thing, yeah, it's kind of like takes a different kind of manager to do it. And I don't know. I mean, I've seen it in the Turkish national team where I agree with what you're saying. Like familiarity is more important in certain parts of the field than others. I just hate it when, yeah, you have a guy in form sitting on the bench, or heck, sometimes not even getting the call up. And you have this guy who's been there before. And just because he was good a couple of years ago and scored an important goal, he's still freaking out there despite being in poor form and clearly not contributing. And that's really frustrating for me as a fan to watch. I can only imagine the dude who's not playing watching that saying, hey, how come I'm not out there? And this guy who hasn't done anything for this national team in 2 years and doesn't do much for his club either is out there. So I can kind of see that. But it's going to be interesting. Obviously, the rest of this week sounds like we're going to get more and more squad news. So there'll be some snubs.
There's going to be releases every day. But like we were saying, the injuries are going to, it's card subject to change. Japan has already had to make one change. They were one of the early teams that made their stuff. There's a lot of Danish guys in the Premier League this weekend. Wouldn't be surprised if one of those guys got taken out.
If I'm a manager, I'm telling everybody, hey, check your email Sunday nights.
Yes.
Once the games are over, and I'll let you guys know, kind of thing. Because, yeah, you don't want to tell a guy, yeah, sorry, man, we'd love to have you. And then the next day, you're like, hey, that was just a prank call. Can you make it to the plane? We leave 2:00 tomorrow. So, yeah, you don't want to be in that situation. So it's interesting to see. And I don't know. It's the World Cup. there's so much negative to go on. I can't get as excited as I have been in the past. It's probably because of the timing and, like I say, the
Yeah.
background behind where
There's a
it's
lot.
at,
Yeah,
when it's
there's
at,
a
all that
lot.
kind of stuff.
We just
But
got to get the games going.
yeah, I think so. I think once it kicks off and we kind of like more talk about, I think there's a lot more talk about stuff now, football right now. Hopefully, we'll just be talking football stuff mostly and try to focus on that. But there's going to be a lot of other stuff coming
Oh,
out
yeah.
too.
Oh, yeah,
Well,
yeah.
I don't know if you're ready for the second seltzer this morning, but I'm ready for the second cup of Joe over here. We'll be back tomorrow morning. Shout out to the boys who, when the cat's away, mice play last night on the podcast. But I want to mention again that I'm so proud of Bickler for bringing out trivia. That just, brought a tear to my eye when somebody messaged me and said, "Hey, they're doing trivia without you," and stuff. But we'll be back tomorrow morning, bright and early. Until then, have a great Tuesday, guys. Take care.